To see you. This is the fourth installment of our series of hearings on the effects of the federal agencies on the workers who are and the workers who are still remaining twice as much work for the same amount of money or less, but also effect on all of us. I mean, do you really want to get on a plane if TSA isn't completely functional? No. So it's been very interesting. I think people have learned a lot about what the government, specifically the federal government agencies do on our behalf, and there are lots more to come. Next week, we're going to be having a hearing on the closure of the Department of Education and how that is affecting both K-12 education and also university education. So there will be a panel. It will be at CTU next week. You'll all get information in the mail, assuming that you've signed the sign-up sheet, which is somewhere, but I will make sure it gets around. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Don Villar, the Secretary Treasurer of Chicago Federation of Labor, who has been central to this whole series.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
Glad we gather every Monday. Actually, we didn't gather last Monday because we were coming off of St. Patrick's Day. So, but this is good to come together to talk about this important issue. You know, I think after the plethora of executive orders and actions, it's really pretty much put a bullseye on our civil servants. So we call this is civil servants speak out. And the public, a lot of people don't know what's going on or the lives that, what's happening. And actually, last Thursday, we had that rally for the postal workers, right, John? You're members.
Yes, sir.
Up on the northwest side. And, before the rally, I was, I had an hour to kill. So I'm at the bar across the street watching March Madness. And so there's about, 6 people at the bar, 3 construction workers, a school teacher, and 2 guys trying to sell liquor to the proprietor. So I was sitting there watching the game, just having a beverage, and police car pulls up, and several police cars pull up, and they're there for the rally, for the event that's going to take place across the street. Then the news crews come up, and like, oh, and everybody at the bar thinks, oh, something's going down, something big, because the news is here. And and everybody, there's a hubbub in the bar. The bar says, no, they're here because the federal government wants to privatize the post office. They want to take your post office. And it's funny, it's like in this bar room of strangers, when they found out, like, wait, they can't take my post office. They can't take these vital resources, these vital services. The people at the bar got pretty upset. They were like, whoa, and we were all buzzing in the bar about, that's not right, that ain't right. Like, I depend on that these services. I depend on these these resources, these vital services. And so, and I leave them at the bar, and but they're agitated. So we start our rally, and I'm at the rally, I'm firing people up. I'm just like, doing what I always do, screaming and yelling, but then I look across the street. The guys at the bar are now on the street saying, yeah. It's like when we talk to people, when we tell them what's happening, when we tell them, they're trying to take your vital services away. They're trying to take away all these things that we are all depend on. When people, they get off their bar stools, they get off the couch, they become from bystanders to upstanders. And I think that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do this series. Like, we want people to become from bystanders to upstanders to learn how this is impacting them. And I really appreciate all the discussions that we've had. This is the 4th in the series, and every time, like, a lot of people, there's folks say, oh, I didn't know that. Whoa, I didn't know that that's what they do. I didn't know that that's the impact on our lives. And I want to acknowledge our news crews. Nave at CWA Local 41 and IPW Park Way. Thank you. And for coming, for being here, and you know what, the press, the news industry, the news media, they've been under attack. So we gotta stand with our journalists, our union journalists, and appreciate all the hard work they do. I know it's tough. And, first, they went after the journalists. Then they went after the lawyers. Then they went after the labor activists. That's how it goes in the authoritarian government. But we gotta speak up. We gotta be from bystanders to upstanders. We gotta get off of that bar stool, right? Get off the couch and just, speak out and tell the truth and tell these stories of how this touches our lives and impacts us. So today we're going to talk about aviation. Aviation is important to Chicago. Yeah. I mean, we got O'Hare and Midway airports. Hundreds of thousands of lives and families depend on aviation in one form or another. From our work, the folks on the plane, folks in the air, folks in the ground, and folks that keep things moving. The folks that keep things moving are our federal workers, our federal civil servants, whether it's the air traffic controllers, whether it's the passenger safety folks, all those, and most importantly, our TSA, transportation security officers. They make sure that we could fly safely. And if they're not working, if they're not happy, if they're under stress, it's not good for all of us, any of us. So today we have Darrell English, president of AFGE 777, and TSO, and we got Scott Tejas, president of AFA-CWA United Airlines. And again, so think about like the interconnectivity there. Like, Scott can't work. Scott's job becomes more difficult if Darrell is not working, or it can't do his job, or it is under pressure. I mean, we are all connected. And that's the whole thing about the labor movement. We're connected, our work connection. And it's really a hard time for workers right now, right? I mean, like last week, I think it was at 5-6 rallies last week of workers who are under pressure, under stress, and just not, it's a difficult time right now for the working class. So with that said, I'm gonna ask Darrell to come up and say a few words. And by the way, caveat, the opinions expressed by our speakers are their own and does not represent the companies that they work for.
Work up, man. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Like Don has said, TSA is the newest agency that has recently, besides the Department of Education, that's been under attack in the sense of union bashing or taking away union rights. Just earlier in March, we received notice from our headquarters stating that our collective bargaining rights will be taken away from TSOs. This became surprising to us because just last year, we signed a 7-year contract with the agency. So without any kind of knowledge of this, they unilaterally said that, you know what, you guys will no longer have collective bargaining rights. In fact, they stated in their statement was that not only will you no longer have union rights today, but anymore in the future. So, with that being said, we said, okay, we'll see you in court. And that's what we did. We filed suit against the agency. And we just recently received an actual judge to hear our judgment, which we anticipate to be in the near future. And we have a very strong case against the agency that there's a contract that was actually signed by the agency just last year. Now, just like all the other federal agencies, the impact it has on our officers is building up to the point where officers are starting to consider to move on to different areas. Now, how's that going to impact us? You have officers that have years and years of experience. You just don't let go veterans like that and expect someone new to come in. It takes months to get a person's IQ level up to a screening capacity that some of these veterans are up to. So when we lose these veterans because of their family, they want to have something that's more secure. It hurts me because now I know that now could be a vulnerability. Now we're losing this special IQ level, this talent that we have all of a sudden gone. And how long will this last? Now, just like all the other areas, like aviation, it's all connected. So when one hurts, the other one hurts. It's a trickle-down effect. And I just wanted to make sure that officers, people know that TSA is here. It's a good agency, but if it's a good agency, if it's run correctly. And by union bashing, by taking away collective bargaining rights, is not the best way to go. Officers feel intimidated. They feel that they can't take any time off, and they leave off. And now management is taking that one-sided approach where either you take it or leave it. So that's where we're at with the agency. But I always tell our officers, even today, that the union is here for you. No matter what the agency say, we're here for you. If there's any issues that you have, contact the union. Contact myself, we're there for you. We'll take on that stress. But I want to also want officers to know that this is going to be a long fight. If you all read Project 2025, it laid out exactly what their intentions was. And we told officers months ago that if this come in, these people get in office, this was going to happen. They're going to first try to deunionize you. Second, they're going to try to change your status from civil servant to Schedule F. And then make you, after that, try to privatize you. So they've been doing exactly what's been said. No matter what anybody have said, if you read it, it tells you exactly what their steps are. They're at the first level right now. The union is the only thing stopping them right now. If they get past the union, they're going to go into that changing of their category. And then eventually privatization. And the way they're going to go about that is they're going to probably defund them the way that's going to make people's opinion of them feel that they're incapable of doing their screening functions. And now you got the public on the backs of TSA saying they can't do their jobs. Maybe we can look at outsourcing it and then use that as a way of fighting back. But I told the officers, this is the game plan. We can't sit back. The fight is at our doorstep. We can't run. We can't hide. No matter where you go, whether it's Social Security, EPA, VA, or any other federal agencies, the fight is going to be there. And we're going to be there as the union. But again, I want to, thank everyone for attending this event. AFGE and TSA is always going to be here. We're going to continue to fight to support and also to represent our federal officers and to support other federal agencies. We know it's going to be a tough fight, but the fight is here. So, we have to fight this fight. There is no tomorrow. It's only today. And if we try to think that it's going to be better if we bury our heads in the sand, we're far mistaken. So with that, I wanted to again thank you all for inviting me here. And I don't know if open it up to any questions or anything like that.
Afterwards, Darrell.
Afterwards? Okay. All right. Thank you guys again.
Yeah, the president of AFA-CWA. He's a United Airlines flight attendant, veteran flight attendant.
Scott Pejas. I am the president of Council 8 here in Chicago for the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. We represent over 55,000 flight attendants across 20 airlines. So our office is in the skies. Every time your family travels, these TSO officers are there to protect you, to make sure that everything goes right. And without them, we have problems. The decision to eliminate collective bargaining rights for the TSA is a terrible thing for aviation security and everyone who depends on safe travel. This will take us back to the days of security at its lowest price at the highest cost for our country. Remember September 11th. That's where we were at. And for the last 23 years, we have vowed to never forget. Our safety depends on a good jobs that attract the best candidates, as Darrell said, and the ability of the people on the front lines of aviation security to raise concerns without fear of retaliation. To be clear, the administration does not care about safety, efficiency, or homeland security. This and the illegal firings of the federal employees in an unprecedented attack on workers' rights and our government security to raise our government as a whole. The position of TSO or Transportation Security Officer is competitive, sustainable career because of union representation through their union. TSA officers fought hard to slow attrition, attract people to the job, and increase the number of applicants. We have the best people taking care of our security as a result. Eliminating collective bargaining rights of tens of thousands of TSA officers is an egregious attack on the workers' rights and puts us all at risk when we travel. This move by the White House should be viewed as the same context as massive cuts underway at the Veterans Administration, the Department of Education, and other agencies. These efforts are designed to break these agencies in order to justify privatizing their functions to send more cash to Wall Street. And of course, putting us all at risk, and we end up paying the price. We call on all unions, all airline passengers, and all Americans who care about maintaining the safe and secure travel system to demand that the collective bargaining agreement covering TSA workers be honored by the administration.
Right.
Privatizing TSA would return us to the failed pre-9/11 system for profit security screening. That system with underpaid and understaffed airport screeners was a key flaw in the system that allowed 9/11 attacks to take place. Since 9/11, we have committed to never forget, and this administration must understand just how seriously we mean it. Remember, this is our office, and your families travel on those airlines, and these people keep us safe. We cannot change and go back to the pre-9/11 system. Thank you.
Gentlemen, very much. All right, this is the time in our hearings where we open it up to the floor so that you can tell your stories and you can ask questions to the panelists. So who would like to begin?
I'll say it.
Excellent, thank you.
As a fellow colleague of Scott's, I've been a flight attendant for over 35 years. And one of my first jobs out of high school, I was actually an airport screener. The only job that I ever quit without notice because of the working conditions back then. The way we screened, the lack of qualifications amongst the fellow colleagues that I had back then, and I was only 18 or 19 at the time. So I echo what Scott says. Our office as employees of the airlines, especially as flight attendants and pilots, and the people that we take care of, you who travel in public, if this does become privatized, I will feel afraid to get on an airplane because of what happened before 9/11. Because I believe if we had the system that we have now, back then, I think, I'm not, a genius, but what happened in 9/11 might not have happened the way it did, at least, and the way things happened then. So I echo Scott's sentiments, and I thank you and all your workers. And every time I go to work, I really feel bad because of what the stresses they're going through now. As far as, do I have a job? Well, how much am I gonna get paid? Am I gonna have a retirement? Because the government is putting profits over people. Yep.
Thank you.
Scotty, did you worked before 9/11, right?
I did, actually started in 1996, so we were on an aircraft that day.
Why'd you go to the
The skies shut down, and I'll tell you that I was on a 777 headed to San Francisco when all of a sudden the sky shut down. Initial reports were that, there were Cessnas, helicopters. Nobody knew what was going on. It wasn't until they brought the aircraft back that day, and the mechanics basically told us that one of our aircrafts was lost and another one had hit the World Trade Center. And that's a scary thought, that you may not come home to your family. That's a reality, that if we change the system, it could happen again. We don't know. There's people out there that want to do harm to us. And airline travel has been safe, but what's been going on lately? We got to look at what the FAA, the ATC, and the TSA have to deal with right now, and they protect us in the skies. Like I said, that's our office, but it's also the way that we all travel as Americans across this great nation and all over the world. And think about it. If you have to go on an airplane and wonder if you're going to make it there, you don't have to do that right now. But tomorrow, that may change. And that's huge. That's huge.
Thank you.
Very sobering.
Yes, very sobering. We have a question or a comment from the.
Yeah, maybe Darrell,
Well, do you want to talk?
I mean, was it, and actually, I mean, I think a lot of folks that travel probably, there's a little bit of anxiety right now. Going through, because now with fewer TSA officers, your wait times are gonna go up. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if you could talk about like potential, issues that could arise.
Well, currently with TSA, the staffing is still maintains what the level it is. The problem is going to be is that with the anxiety, like Don had mentioned, with the anxiety level being so high, officers are going to feel that they need to take more precautionary steps and move on to other more secure jobs. Again, when they do that, you take away years and years of experience, and it takes months to get an officer up to that level of experience. So after a while, if you leave that gap in there where you have more officers leaving to have a more secure job, that threat level becomes even more vulnerable. So we need those seasoned officers to maintain their jobs, to feel comfortable to work with TSA, not to leave and have all these issues where they feel anxiety and feel that the agency don't have their back. So that's why it's important to keep them and have a functioning agency where TSA officers feel that they're welcome, they have a collective bargaining, they have a collective bargaining rights, and are protected by their union.
Darrell, the other thing, a lot of the TSA officers, I mean, they're from our community. They're from our community. They live in the city. They live in our neighborhoods. They're our neighbors. Some are even our relatives.
Correct. TSA have officers from all walks of life. That's what makes us so diverse and such a good agency to work for. But again, the agency is only good if it's functioning correctly. Attacking union rights and their members that work for for TSA isn't the correct way of doing it. The agency needs to have it where officers feel at home, where they feel comfortable working at, and they feel that their ideals can be used fully, not to be put in the closet and afraid to voice their opinion and afraid to stand up when they know something's wrong. Again, this is something that's been going on with other agencies also. So I don't want to think that it's just TSA. There's the VA, there's the FAA, there's the Department of Education. This is across the board issue that's happening. And we can't maintain this level of anxiety and issues before something happens. We need to make sure that we work together and move forward, not only as an agency, but as a country. That's the only way we'll be able to make sure we overcome this issues.
Thank you. Yes.
What was the excuse given to why did some change have to happen with TSA? Like it's doing its job, you know what? I mean, everything is going well, so what's the rationale for?
The only excuse that we were given in a letter that was sent out to all TSA was basically that the previous administrator's agreement that was made is no longer valid. They mentioned issues as if the membership was being forced into being a part of the union, and that dues collection was not profitable as far as helping the union, the officers out. But again, with TSA, it's not that they have to sign in to become a union member. It's not like they're automatically a part of the union. If they don't feel comfortable in the union, they can leave the union. So the argument that they were using wasn't a valid one because it wasn't that they were forced into it. As far as any kind of dues that were being collected, these dues was to make sure that members have benefits, and the things if that have to be legally challenged, we will have individuals that were able to have attorneys that represent them. So it wasn't as if that we think that it's something that was done fairly. We know that the real reason officers are satisfied, they've gotten better uniform allowances, they got free parking, they got their seniority protected. These things were all in the actual contract that we had. Not only that the previous administrator also, before they had left, gave them what they call pay equity. Pay equity was a salary that was provided to TSA because before TSA was one of the lowest paying agencies out there. So this was a part in connection with the previous administrator. All of that now could be up to challenge in the future because we don't know if this is going to be something that's going to be provided to them if this pay equity is going to go forward. If it won't go forward, then you're talking about actually reducing the salaries of officers, which can then make it even a difficult time with that high cost of living is today.
You know, Terrell, I mean, right now it's a busy travel season, right, with all the spring breakers. I mean, what's the stress level of, your union members right now with all what's going on?
Well, stress level is always high when it comes around to this time of year because you have, the spring break. But officers, like I said, TSA officers are very dedicated to their job. They're going to stick through there to make sure that things are taken care of, that you guys are properly, your bags and luggage are properly screened. But the end of the day is that anxiety level is still going to be there. That thought of whether they're going to be able to have a job in the future is going to be there. That thought, should I put another application in just to protect my child, is going to be there. That thought is going to be there, whether I can call off today and have to worry about being written up. That thought is always going to be there. So when you have those things still in the back of their mind, when realistically I should be focusing on a bag, that's going to be always a thing that you have to maintain, that you keep that under control. And putting these officers in that kind of jeopardy where they feel that, they're not sure about their job is something that we don't want to bestow on these officers. We want them to be functional. We want them to be focused on their job, and that's about it. No other thing should be on their mind, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the flying public is going to be protected. Just like the FAA is there and other agencies, we want to maintain a focus on our job so we can do our job at the best.
Yes,
I know a big focus so far has been on, preventing another 9/11 type event, but I mean, in recent weeks and months, we've seen, as the way we saw that near crash incident. I mean, how would some of the stuff that we're talking about, how would that impact safety procedures at these airports in terms of trying to prevent instances like the near miss at Midway?
Well, I'm not familiar with the exact details about that issue. I've watched it just like you did on the TV. But as far as TSA will maintain its normal functioning security protocol. As far as any changes in the aviation or whatever happened there, that's something that I'm not privy to really discuss on that, because I don't know what the ins and outs of it is. But I would like to let you guys know that TSA will maintain its screening functions moving forward. It's just that we don't want to put our officers in any unpredictable situations.
yes.
Yeah, well, labor's been like taking some setbacks for some decades. And like a couple of years ago, there was an unprecedented number of labor unions that went on strike. And I kind of feel like that's what we're seeing now. More and more union activists are coming to the point where they're not taken anymore. And, they're kind of backs against the wall, they're going on strike. And I was hoping that Scott from the AFA would talk a little bit about what's going on with the flight attendants. I was just at the O'Hare for a pickup line, and Rick works at the railroad. I used to work at the railroad. And so we appreciate the whole restriction in terms of like, you can't strike. That's not that's not an option for transportation workers. And so that's a little bit of your hands tied behind your back. So I'm just kind of hoping you could talk a little bit.
So obviously, we're different than most labor groups where we are under the Railway Labor Act. So we have to be released. We have a cooling off period. And so there are a lot more hurdles that we have to jump through to get to that strike point. We've obviously taken a 99.9%, 99.99% strike vote at United Airlines for the flight attendants. So being said, we're still in mediation. We're making greater steps because of that, but we're nearing 4 years without we're on a contract that was amendable on August 28th of 2021. So for the last nearly 4 years, we haven't seen a raise. Meanwhile, the cost of living is going up. But as you know, railway and airlines are under the act. So therefore, we have to follow the rules in order to get to the finish line. So although we have a lot more hurdles, our flight attendants are very, very succinct in the fact that we are ready to take the next step if the management doesn't step up and give us a contract without concessions and without cuts. Because they know that they want to give us the money, but they want to cut everything else, benefits, retirement, and work rules. And we can't stand for that.
No.
So that's the difficult part.
As this comes after you were called essential workers.
Essential workers.
And
And not paid for all the time that we're at work. So, you know, when we're reporting, we're not getting paid. We have flight attendants on reserve for 24 hours that have to sit there, be on call. They get paid 4 hours and 20 minutes or 4 hours 7 per day for that 24-hour period. So the companies were getting a lot of free labor. That's not going to happen anymore. We're going to stand strong and get what we deserve.
yeah,
One more question for you.
Yes.
So what are the steps? You said it's been like 4 years without a contract and 99% vote. What are the steps? How much longer will this go on before you can just say we're walking out?
Well, to clarify, we're not without a contract. Our contract becomes
Okay.
amendable. So we work under the current contract that we're under. But obviously the pay raises ended in 2021 and it's now 2025. So for the last 4 years,
inflation's got
we
it.
haven't seen any changes in our pay, but yet cost of living has gone up. We live in some of the most expensive cities in the world, San Francisco, New York, London, Chicago. Denver is even expensive nowadays. So we go through the steps of, you know, we go into negotiations. If that doesn't work, we file for mediation, which we have done. We've been in mediation now for nearly 2 years, year and a half, I want to say. And now if the mediation doesn't work, that's when we take the step, we take the strike vote, which we've done. And then we ask to be released if we don't see any movement at the mediation table, which would give us a 30-day cooling off period. And then at that point, we'd be released to strike.
Hey, Scotty, what can we do?
Well, get out there and support the flight attendants at United Airlines. We're the last airline with flight attendants without a contract. Number 2 in profitability, number 5 as far as flight attendants. We're 20% below what other flight attendants in the industry are getting paid. Think about that for a second, 20%. And we still come to work, we still take care of our customers, and we ensure that your safety. Remember, we're there to ensure that you're safe. At the end of the day, how many evacuations have you seen? You know what happened in Toronto? Those flight attendants got everybody off and everybody lived upside down. They evacuated a plane that was upside down and on fire and everybody got out safe and sound. And that's what we're there for. We may be there for your comfort, but we're also there for your safety.
We appreciate that.
So,
I want to share with you something that will not make you happy, but is, I think, a consequence of your union, the union busting. How many of you like standing in line and waiting to go through TSA? If people leave because they're frustrated and they don't have representation, those lines are gonna get longer. And that's gonna be yet another form of torture for the TFL fellows and gals. And it just, you know, it's not just unions that they're taking down. It's the public as well. Anyway, sorry, I just needed to say.
those frustrated passengers get on an airplane.
Oh,
Yes,
We've-
right.
We've seen that result.
Yeah,
air raid.
right, yeah, people are standing in the line and the lines are gonna get longer and longer. And people are gonna get more and more frustrated
Mhm.
and filled with rage. Yes,
Is your name Darrell?
Yes.
Yeah, so while you wait to find out what the courts say about, you know, the legality of, removing your bargaining rights, is, the employer, I guess, the government honoring your contract in terms of filing grievances and so forth?
So currently, moving forward, once we was given that decision by the national, well, by TSA, everything was put on hold. So any kind of grievances that you had mentioned was cut out. Until we get an actual decision from the judge, nothing's gonna be moving forward. We can't attend any kind of meetings under union status with an officer. We still are helping officers, but it's off duty. So, but we can't go into those meetings with them as we did before to represent them. I've been telling my officers, my stewards to talk to them before or after they come out those meetings, those sessions with them, or after duty hours to make sure that we can represent those officers. So we don't lose those officers because of those new changes that happen.
Yeah, one comment and a question. I've been flying for a long time. And I remember shortly after 9/11, waiting in line in Cleveland Hopkins Airport. And there were about, I can't remember counting at the time, there were probably about 30 people in line ahead of me. There were 3 people up checking bag, doing the inspection. It was all hand inspection then. And it turned out there were 2 bosses and 1 worker. The 1 worker was checking all the bags with the 2 bosses there looking over everything. So of course that person was extra careful. And these were the private sector days when they had these private companies. I was probably making slightly over minimum wage for doing that, I'm guessing. But anyway, it took over 45 minutes to clear 30 people. And that wasn't unheard of at other airports too. It could be really slow. So every time I'm in a line now, I'm thinking, maybe waiting, but you know what? It goes smoothly. So, and thanks to all you folks. Now, my question is that I remember I was still working for Department of Labor when the first Trump regime came into power. And of course, typically when there's a changeover in the administration, you have a bit of a hiring freeze. Then it takes them a couple months to get everything together. But I know in my agency, it took forever to start hiring because, you had to get the okay from Office of Personnel Management. And for some reason, the okay from Office of Management and Budget. Our good friend Russ Troy, who was the prime author or whatever, editor of Project 2025, and who said he wanted public employees to be scared when they went to work. So, and it took several years, and we never really did get back to the staffing level we were. Are they doing any hiring at all now, or is it really slow? Or is it even happening?
Oh, no, TSA is still hiring. But that on the tail end means that there's officers that are leaving too.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
The fact of the matter is that officers are under stress because of their jobs.
Okay.
But again, when we see these, now that we're cut out of new hire classes, because before with our contract, we was able to be there to view every new hire class. Now that we're cut out, we're not aware of how many are coming in. We know people are leaving because we can see officers that are leaving or saying that they're being walked out. But now that they're coming in, we don't have anybody representing them to let them know the do's and don'ts and to be able to follow up exactly how many officers are coming in. So that's the negative part of it. We have no knowledge of who's coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
This is kind of a question also for you about.
Okay.
So, I've been flying since I was a baby with my family. Like before I was 2 years old, I made 5 flights. I've never felt more safe than when I was with TSA over any, anybody you could call an officer, like even financial aid officer. Like I feel safest with TSA and also flight attendants. I know have made an effort to intervene on flights and human trafficking. For instance, there's been sex trafficking, some flight attendants from Chicago. I'm aware of some of those stories. But maybe you could address my worries now, because this is the first time in 30 years I don't really feel safe. Maybe you could. I don't pretend to know the POTUS's state of mind, but he has blamed, a diversity, equity, and accessibility on some of the plane, crashing. Is there something to that, the office So I just assumed that it's kind of an ethno-nationalist or fascist, ethno-nationalist or fascist ploy. But is there more diversity? Is there more racial diversity in TSA? And is it kind of like when Reagan was going against, air traffic controllers because it was primarily out union members?
Well, with TSA is a very diverse agency. That I can actually say they do have. The problem is that now that this new executive orders are rolling out, it's going to be hard to monitor to make sure that they are maintaining that status. Because now we're facing a different type of issues that are coming down. As far as the quality of officers that we have, TSA has the best screening officers ever. And I thank them for their loyalty and their dedication. I just want them to be able to understand that the union is here for them and for TSA to understand that there's no better way to help your officers out but to give them collective bargaining rights. Them taking away them collective bargaining rights isn't helping out the TSA officers, isn't helping out the aviation, isn't helping out the general public. It's all of us all connected together. And if one thing falls, it's a ripple effect. So whether they stop hiring at one point, it's going to be a ripple effect because you have the quality of officers going to be dropping down. And it takes, like I said before, months to get officers up to run into that speed. But until then, we're still processing or still screening officers and passengers in their bags.
Yes, sir.
Someone asked earlier how we can help. People have to get out to help. Unions back in the 50s, when Trump says America was great, there was a 35% union membership rate in this country. Now we're down to 10%. And we have to help the unions by supporting them at these events. That is the best way the public can help them. I'm not a union member, but I've been attending a lot of union events to show my support. Both my parents were union reps. I hope we can get more of our friends and family to their events.
Thank you.
Around, again, the same question, what can we do? What can the public do to help you guys?
To come out like you're doing now. Again, your politicians that you see out there, that's what we're going to need you guys to help in the most, as far as making sure they know exactly what's going on, as far as supporting either the aviation or the TSA, with the VA, Social Security, Department of Education. Those politicians need to be held accountable for it. You know what I mean? So letting them off the hook isn't really serving us. We need, if they're not doing their job and helping out our people, then we need to replace them. Because at the end of the day we are one family here. We need each other. This is one country. And if they're not helping us out, then we need to find somebody else that is going to do that job for them.
Let's be devil's advocate. Let's say the judge says that, you know what, this contract, you guys don't get it, you don't deserve it. It was the previous administration. He gives whatever kind of excuse he gives. I mean, what can you speak to what sort of precedent that might set for not only you guys, but also just unions across the country in terms of, the fact that, we can sign an agreement and then 4 years later, we don't know, or however many years later, we don't know if they're going to abide by it.
Well, to me personally, I don't think it has set I think it has set a bad precedence and to violate a contract, official contract that was signed just last year. And to say it's voided because someone else came in and they have a different opinion on if they should have this contract valid or not. We're always going to have different administrators in different agencies that come and go. The contract is not with the administrators, but the agency. So that to me isn't a valid issue for me to say, well, it's no reason to stand. Now, if that does happen and the judge feels that and that it's a valid reason for them to be able to cut the contract, we'll go on. I mean, we're not going to just give up. AFGE is a strong agency, strong union. We'll find other ways to fight. Again, and that will come back to you guys helping us out politically to get out there to make sure these politicians know that we ain't stopped the fight. You may have won this fight, but the battle's not over. So again, that's how you can help us out.
Well, there's a couple of rank and file and union lawyers in the room too, and it's not the courts that give us any justice or rights, and they're not going to, and they're being intimidated and throughout, people's histories in or anything. Unfortunately, powers come from the people, from our unions, our trade union women. So I hope, Brother Don, you're right. But I think one thing, Don asked me to remind people that power comes from us, from the workers,
from community, from people standing up together. So maybe you'll get a good victory from the courts to only kind of throw water on our struggle, because the struggle's bigger than, I mean, it's a fascist coup. So it's bigger than just attacking workers and attacking unions and carving out the government and attacking community, and attacking Medicaid, and, you know, it's what Bernie has been saying. So Don has all the, I'll let him make all the May Day announcements, but we're all building up to that to say, power comes from the people, not from these judges, although, you know, we do have a campaign going in the Lawyers Guild and other groups, and there's other guild lawyers here to defend our judges, to stand up, don't be cowards, don't cower to these people. And now there's a new executive order to attack lawyers who sue the federal government, like, let them come after us.
Right.
And we're not gonna put up with it any more than you are, so we'll stand with you, you stand with us, and as Don said, we are one big struggle to take back our power. I just wanna kind of put a filter on this, that justice doesn't come from the courts, whether it's the Voting Rights Act, which was heard today, that they're about to gut again, you know, some set asides on Black communities, so thanks everyone for being here, being there tomorrow, today, the next day, the next year, until our work is done.
Thank you.
You know, it's clear that they want to eviscerate all unions, but they don't yet have the power to go into, say, I don't know, IBM, and get rid of the union there or whatever. They're not going into corporations yet.
It's sort of beating us up in the corporate.
But
But yeah, you're right. I mean, this, what they're doing to the NLRA right now.
yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm not trying to say that they're not evil.
Brenda, we should see if there's any comment.
Oh, yes, there are comments on the Zoom. Thank you for bearing with. Please.
Thank you. Carol Lang wants to unmute and share some comments. So, Carol, if you can unmute. There you go.
Hi, I'm from New York and I'm a city worker and a state worker. I work for
Can
CUNY.
you try one more time, Carol?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
And you can hear her, but she's not coming on the speakers.
It's not muted on.
Audio output.
Carol, if you could write your question in your comment, oh, you can hear on Zoom. We cannot hear in person, so if you want to write it down, I can read it out for you. And
So-
in the meantime, while we troubleshoot that, and so some comments from Carol Lang. Your union is in a great position to strike and stop this madness. In fact, Sarah Nelson called for a general strike. From Lori McCann, NTEU stands in solidarity with you. From Casey Sweeney, solidarity from CTU. Michael Pasqua, listening in from the EPA and Local 704. Thanks for all you do to keep us safe. From Denise Murchison, AFGE Local 781 supports you 1000%. And now question from Carol Lang, why isn't the union calling a strike? Musk and Trump don't care about judges' decisions.
Do you want to respond?
It's a question as well, but yeah.
Well, I can talk about our, like I said, we have to go through the process. So we have taken a strike vote. We are trying to narrow our differences with management. And at that point, we make the decision of whether to strike or not. Because obviously when the 30-day cooling off period ends, then we are either striking or the presidential board can be called. So you really have to make a decision that you're close to the finish line before you actually call for the strike, with us at least.
Terrell, do you have any comments to that?
As far as TSA, unfortunately, TSA is not able or allowed to strike, so that's not an option for us. Doing the events that we're doing now and putting it in the union's hands to be able to speak on behalf of the officers is the best way of addressing it. But as far as a strike, TSA doesn't have that right to strike.
So if you want to stay there, I can ask you. So from Kathleen Mass Weigart, which specific people or agencies should we be calling to state our support for TSA?
There's no specific agency. Everyone's open right now as far as looking out for those individuals that support us. Again, I'm always looking for those congressional leaders that have more of an impact right now. But we need to make sure that we mobilize like we're doing now, talking to each other, letting each other aware about what's going on and getting us together so that we can come in a group to be able to address those issues.
Scott, do you want to talk to that?
I would say as far as who do you call? Well, call those congressmen and those senators that are on the transportation committee. That, you know, we elected to stand up and make sure that we're safe. Both, you know, whether you're a passenger or whether you're a crew member, ensure that they're sticking up for what we voted for, to ensure that they are on those committees and looking out for the best interests of the constituents.
So I have another question if you want to stay up there.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a list of questions here.
Okay.
So from Carol Lang, what Carol was trying to communicate was, the federal workers can shut everything down. Our government is fascist. We need to fight them by shutting the economy down. They are not going through any process. Management is doing illegal things every day. You can mobilize the entire nation. We have to take that right. The steel workers, the auto workers, the rubber workers, etc., organized illegal strikes so that they can form a union. Are you waiting for the union to be busted?
No, we definitely don't want the union to be busted. That is exact opposite. We're actually mobilizing. I think we've mobilized more union members in the past few years than we've ever seen before. We're actually moving in the right direction. It's just a matter that under the current administration, I think a lot of that mobilization is trying to be stifled. So we need to continue the fight and we need to stick together because unity is obviously strong. You look at the European unions and they stick together. If one goes on strike, the rest are all there to support them. We need to do the same thing here. When we have these picket lines, there shouldn't be hundreds of people there. There need to be thousands of people there.
Yeah.
We need to send a message to your management and these CEOs that, you know what, if they're on strike, I'm not going to cross that picket line. Those are the type of messages we need to stand. So unity is amongst all the public.
Follow him on that.
Did all that.
Yeah.
More questions? All right, I'll stay.
How are the air controllers being impacted by the current administration?
Well, the only thing that I've seen with the air controllers is that there have been cuts in the amount of people that are out there. Especially in the Northeast, we've seen a lot of issues with air traffic controls
There's something down
and the
in
amount of saturation that's out there. So, I believe we need more. We need automation. We need to change what's going on out there. Look at what's like somebody said, what happened in Midway. You know,
Yeah.
a near miss. Could have been a hit. I mean, it's that important to ensure the safety of all the passengers and with ATC especially. You got thousands and thousands of planes up there. You don't even realize how many are up there at any given time. And there are people responsible to ensure that they're on a path in a safe path. So we need to make sure that we support it and make it grow and make it better. Not be satisfied with where it's at. And what we've seen in the last few months, there's problems. So.
Awesome. Darrell, any comments to that?
Yeah, I think similar to what he was saying, I think that as far as the challenges that we have in aviation, also with TSA and any kind of security agency, we always have to evolve and make changes. So that's one of the things that's really great about TSA. They're constantly changing with technology to make sure they combat wherever the threat is. But as far as where we at now as a agency itself is concerned, we're open-minded on whatever has to be done as far as making changes. But right now, there's nothing specific that I can talk about.
There's more questions if you want to stay up there. And from Denise Murchison, why did this administration start with terminating TSA's union? What can members in the community do to take action to undo this flagrant unfairness?
Well, I believe that TSA was used or targeted because they're the newest federal agency out there. They're the only agency, one of the newest ones that don't have full collective bargaining rights also. So it's made them easier to be able to go after. Like I mentioned before, their pay, they don't have Title V rights, so their salaries are not the same as other federal agencies. And that's why that's going to be a challenge in the near future to make sure they at least get that increase that they got a year ago to be honored. But again, TSA, because they don't have their Title V rights, makes them more acceptable to being able to go after.
Yes.
It's a question for Darrell and Scott. What are the challenges to mobilizing your membership on this issue? I mean, have they been reaching out to their representatives?
One of the challenges, I'm gonna turn over to Scott. One of my challenges that I'm having with our officers is there's always an age group difference. You have those that have been through a lot of things that understand what a union is. You have the younger ones that really haven't evolved enough to really understand the impact and how important a union means to this country itself. So making sure we communicate effectively to the younger ones and to make sure they understand how important they are and how important their ideals are is some of the challenges that we have as far as the union, to bring everybody on board, the young, the old, all of them to be able to be brought together to uplift the agency.
And I would agree with what Darrell said. You know, there are people here younger, there's people who are union, there's people who are not union, and they're all now part of the union. So it's a matter of getting them interested in what we're doing and show them the benefits of unionizing and fighting together. The other part of it is the companies try to do this is to draw these negotiations, these bargaining sessions, so that, you know, you get tired and get worn down. Look, we're pushing 4 years almost. So to get out there in a picket line every single month or two to bring attention to what we're fighting for, it's sometimes difficult. But all our members are engaged when we're there working together and on the line speaking about it. We all want the same things. We want better contracts, we want fair living wages, and we want work rules. We want the benefits that, you know, we've earned and deserve. And we shouldn't have to fight for 4 years to get them. We need to start bargaining before contracts become amendable in our industry.
So I will continue with the comments. And Michael McCauley said, it's great to see strong union leaders role modeling for our members and educating the public. NTEU supports the United Flight Attendants and the bargaining unit employees at TSA. All the working people that voted for this Project 2025 agenda need to see the reality of what they voted for. Dr. Robert Jones said, great conversation, information, and call for growing solidarity today. Natalia Galvan said, Natalia Galvan from Action Builder Action Network. We support you, stand with you, and are so grateful for you. Flying United soon, and I'm happy to contact the folks on the transportation committees tomorrow. Thank you.
You're also manager, don't you?
From Carol Lang, striking is the only solution. We need to organize a general strike that will make management listen. They won't otherwise. It's clear that they have no respect for democracy. Trump is a fascist. He does not care about workers. Only workers can protect workers. These politicians all fall in line. You're not going to get it without a strike. And then also said, excuse me, federal workers have been losing their jobs and going to the politicians have not worked. Once again, Sarah Neslin called for a general strike. Are people at least debating this question? Scott Coleman from UAW 551. Information about rallies for public workers is not getting out to the public. We want to help build the fight back. Organizing mass rallies is a necessary step towards a general strike.
Yes.
And that is the end of questions and comments as of now.
Thank you.
I spoke here a few weeks ago with an I think 704 for EPA. They're having an event at 77 West Jackson tomorrow at noon. So I'd love to see if we can get some support out for them.
Milo, do you have a flyer for that?
I have a graphic on my.
Jake, did we know about that?
Yeah. Any, yes,
Well, I have a comment. I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking care of us as travelers. It's not always easy to travel. But thank you so much for the work that you do. And I also want to say federal workers are under attack. And thank you so much to the airline stewards who came to support these federal workers. The solidarity is so important. And I just thank you for this example of solidarity. And I'm trying to think of next steps also. When I was leaving work today, I told my coworkers, and I'm a union worker, I work in episodic television, and I told them I was going to this panel and they wanted to know about it. So tomorrow I'm going to tell them about it. But I think conversations in our community is super important because what's happening is happening so fast and it's so confusing and it's so hard to keep track of everything. And we have to educate ourselves. And so thank you so much again for this panel. I'll also say to Carol Lang that I am always ready to talk about a general strike. So.
Well, let's just chat. I would like to suggest that if you got an email from me about this particular panel, you don't need to sign the sign-in sheet because I'm actually trying to work out a whole list of these things. But if you didn't, please do sign the sign-in sheet legibly, ideally, so that I can actually read it. And in that case, if you have an action, if you know about an action, let me know. And I will have this massive mailing list and I will send it out to everybody and we'll all be able to show up for you. I've been at 3 of your picket lines. They're great. They're fun.
They're loud.
They're loud.
Nice and loud. They're right out in front of, right between United and American.
Correct.
And, you know, I actually chatted with a couple of the cops that were standing there and I told them about Jobs for Justice and that they wanted a union representation or if they wanted to have a hearing about their work they could, and they were very pleasant. So,
Negotiations too.
they are, the firefighters haven't had a contract in how long? It's like 6 years or something.
Yeah, 3, 4.
There's so much we can go out and demonstrate about. Now, admittedly, demonstrating doesn't make a whole lot of change. What it does do is it makes connections. And the more we connect with one another, the more we know one another, the more we talk to one another, the stronger we'll be, and the closer we'll be to a Labor Party. So that's my 2 cents.
We have a lot of activities coming up, right? May Day, there's a May Day planning going on, and this week we've got a lot, besides the action at the EPA, we have the VA Friday. We have a News Guild event at the Billy Goat on Friday. So, and what else do we have? Do we have something else this week, Jake?
VA, there's a VA demonstration.
VA demo on
Friday,
yeah.
Pardon? May 28th, Jesse
At Jesse Brown.
Yes.
And then next,
March.
It's
Right.
okay.
I'm in May Day.
Expect us to be able to remember it.
and then, we'll be back next Monday, but we're gonna be at CTU next Monday to talk about the Department of Education, and then we'll be back here the following Monday for maybe HUD, we were talking about HUD or DOL.
And Saturday, I May Day planning at CTU.
Oh, Saturday, May Day planning at CTU at once.
10 a.m.
Yeah, and May Day, we've got our May Day 5K for May Day on April 27th, right? April 27th.
Which is not bad.
No. And Worker Memorial Day is April 28th, so,
Freedom Road at CTU, that one?
no, April 28th, you guys, are they doing something on April 28th too? Okay. We should, there's
We need all to know everything.
This guy, it's the guy.
I know he's the guy.
the guy behind the guy.
I'm going to put this sign-in sheet right here. And if you have not signed in yet, or if you haven't received emails from me, please.
So I want to thank Scott and Darrell Telling these stories, these experiences, again, I want to thank our union members behind the cameras there.
Yeah.
We are talking with the union tent, right? There's
Sit
still some
down,
pizza.
sit down.
I know if you got an OTE, grab a pizza. It's called opportunity to eat.
Yeah.